designing a building from the very first lines all the way to the rendered images in 60 minutes. That's what we are going to look at today.
Yep.
My name is Zoltán Tóth. Over here is our resident architect, Mr. Idésval.
Hi there.
There's a lot to discuss, so let's get it going. For those of you who have never met us before, we are representing a company called ARCHLine, and ARCHLine actually stands for a family of products targeted for any kind of design specialist. We are catering for professionals such as architects, interior designers, furniture makers, or basically anybody who needs to have a rendered image of a location like this one.
Yep.
Just in a few words about who we are and what kind of products we are dealing with. We actually have 3 products we are going to briefly discuss today. ARCHLine.XP LT is a very affordable, small version of our main software products, and that is designed to be able to work in 3D, and that is targeted for smaller offices. If you're looking for something more comprehensive, or maybe you are working in a BIM environment, we recommend that you take a look at ARCHLine.XP Professional, which is a complete all-out BIM tool set, and that is targeted for larger projects, such as the one that we are going to look at today. And lastly, we have ARCHLine.XP Live, which is the architectural visualization software targeted to make stunning rendered images. Just to give you an idea of what kind of projects we are catering for, just a few example renders made by third-party renderers, but this gives you an idea in terms of what kind of projects are realized with ARCHLine, both interior design and architectural projects. And now what we have here is what we are going to build up, but interestingly we are going to do it from the first lines.
Yeah.
And I think the first step what we are doing is to convert a line drawing into a 3-dimensional model. That's the most widespread or the most common workflow. But speaking of these things, how do we get information into ARCHLine.XP?
Yeah, what we have here is a complete BIM model already, with all the walls and the roof and the railings and everything else, even the surrounding. We will show you how to get those objects, how to prepare those walls. Should they be like multi-layered walls or like conceptual drawing systems. And then we will go and progress into something more complicated, like a multi-story building. We will create all the sections, all the elevations, and finally we will create all the extracted data. Like we will create a schedule. We will add a plot lamp, a plot layout at the end, and we will publish it into a PDF. And at the very end, we will also create visuals, literally in seconds, using the live solution. And we will show you how to create animated videos out of the model that you have. So this is what we are trying to achieve today.
And how do we get started? And what is the first step of our workflow?
And the first step can be many things, from scratch to have an IFC file or DWG file. And because DWG file is still a very, very popular and a common file format that architects used to communicate with, today we will focus on the DWG input. But as you can see on screen, ARCHLine is very, very communicative. It is designed to be as much as communicative as it can be with the other design systems or modelers or renderers or third-party solutions. What you can see at the top of the screen is mostly for the architects, the IFC, the AutoCAD ecosystem communication formats, and the Revit and the green building systems. And then you have all the popular 3D modeler formats like the SKP, the 3DS, the OBJ. Those are for the 3D models when you communicate with a visual designer designing the model themselves. And then you can extract this data into third-party renderers, for example, like Atlantis, which is a popular solution, Indigo, Thea, Cinema 4D, and also at the end, of course, you can publish information into PDF files or Excel files. So that's the whole circle here around.
Just a reminder, what kind of file are we using now?
Today we will work with DWG files. So what I have here, is a plain white paper. I just loaded up a new project. And then what I will do here, I will just go to the file and import and select any of those file formats that I would like to import. If you cannot find something that you would like to import, then you should go with the first option that will list all the possible options from here. And you can select anything that you like. Like, for example, we have this building floor plan as one single DWG file now. So I will just click on open. And then the software, what we see here is it is actually recognizing the unit system from within the DWG file, and you don't have to do anything with that. But if you want, you can of course rescale it or change the unit system. Now what we have here, we have this nice little ruler here.
I think
which
it should be about 15 feet. So
yes,
that's a good comparison.
So I think when I just zoom in enough, and like we can see like this 10 feet long line, and I just align it next to the original ruler, it tells me that this is okay. So I will just click OK, and then the software imports this drawing into a new empty white paper. Now this is without the 3D. Now you can get DWG files with 3D content as well, but that is not a BIM model. In a BIM model, when you see a wall, it is represented in 2D and in 3D at the same time. It's not two separate things. So when you would import a DWG file that is not containing walls, it is containing drawings. So now we need to convert it into something.
And how does that happen?
So I will just go and use the wall tools here. As you can see, the ribbon has several different pages. I will just use the building now, and I go to wall, and there is one dedicated tool for that. This is the walls and DWG drawing option, and then I just go ahead and I just try to pick the one and the other endpoint of this wall, and then the thickness by clicking here. And then the software converts this into a wall, and what you can see here is a 3D model of this of this wall. So we will focus on this from now on, and I will just keep going and just like tracking this information, tracing this information,
so the
using the same method all over.
Just like you mentioned, is that just pick a point close to the ending points of the walls and pick the opposite face. Now, the big advantage of this workflow is that you don't really have to care about the thickness of the wall, because it's going to be calculated as you go on. You notice that the wall connections are not always solved automatically, although the software tries its best to do it. But if you want to have a manual control over that, you can do the T and L connections by yourself.
I will show that in a moment.
What Ilyes is doing is that he's going in a circle, and now he's going to turn a thinner partition wall into a 3D model. But again, he doesn't have to know or add the wall thickness. He's just going to click on the ending points, opposite face, and the wall is going to build up. So after that, we are going to solve the connections, which I think in most cases that's pretty fine.
It's just having a few places where you need to use this connection that you just mentioned. It is at the top of the screen. You can either choose T connection or the L connection, and when you select one or the other wall, then the software automatically connects that. Just as you told, in some cases it happens automatically, but when I clicked someplace where it was not long enough, it is not connecting that automatically, but you can solve it manually at any time.
So walls are actually extended or trimmed back depending on what you actually need. And if you are preferring to work in 2D, you can do this actually in 2D or in 3D, and that actually applies to most actions in ARCHLine. You can do things in the 2D view or in the 3D view, whichever is more comfortable.
Yes, sometimes it is simpler to solve situations in the 2D drawing, such as this case, for example, when I have this DWG drawing and I would like to trace all the doors as well. So in that case, I go to the door libraries, and I can either select a door, going to any of those, selecting the shape, the type that I would like to apply inside or outside, or I can just go and use this door by 2 points, which goes with the default door. I only need to determine whether this door is in a partition wall or in a structural wall, and then I just pick the 2 points. I don't even have to know the real width, and then the software traces that, and then now I have a door here, and let's just repeat that here.
So there is
So I
no
have the
need
second
for
one.
manual refreshment of the 3D model. That's
right.
going to build up automatically by itself. But once you have added the windows, because that's another topic, there's going to be another important thing we have to cover. But first, let's talk about the windows. How do we add them?
Yes, that's actually the same thing. You can either go to the libraries, you can even design these doors and windows for you if you can't find the perfect match from the libraries. But now we'll just go with the window by 2 points
Yes.
option, and I will just pick any sort of 2 points on this drawing. And then again, the whole point here is that I don't have to continuously keep that in mind, what is the width and the height and everything else for these windows. I will just quickly trace them, and then later I will make all the changes that are necessary, like the type and the sill height and everything else. So my goal now is to trace this drawing as quick as possible, and then turn it into something that we can consider as a building, and then we can work with that as a building.
What's the deal with the slab? Because we don't have a floor here, so how do we add one?
Yes, that is, in this case, it is actually the same contour as what we have as a contour of the building itself. So for that solution, which is a very common situation, we have a slab by walls tool, when you can just simply select all the walls that are making up the building contour, and then you just hit enter, and the software creates that slab with the default settings, which you can change the material and the side material as well. And in other situations, like for example in case of a terrace, which is in our situation, it's here in our case, I will just go with the slab in sketch mode, which allows me to kind of literally draw the contour of this
Yes,
slab
I think
outside.
The most important thing here is that if you already know CAD, if you have already used any kind of CAD system before, you are going to use very similar tools here as well, because you are going to sketch polylines, offset the nodes, add new nodes, delete the old ones, curve the edges, fillet them if you need. So how do you make a copy of this?
Yeah, the same way you can make a copy as in any sort of Windows program. You just select the content that you would like to make a copy of, and then you just hit Ctrl+C on the keyboard. In this case, you need to pick up a point which you use to paste it with, and then just paste it, Ctrl+V, and just paste it over there. And when you need it, you can of course customize this. I just used an offset on the edges. When you select something, we call these markers. When you click on a marker, you will have an action like changing the size, adding a new breakpoint, or anything else. All those items that you create with the software are very, very flexible, so you can just keep changing them the way you want and flexibly redesign them.
What about the walls? Because so far we have been using a one-layer conceptual wall, but we see on the DWG that that's not the case. We have a 3 or even 4-layer wall. So how do we use that? How do we make that?
Well, we already know the values of these wall layers, so we won't measure them. Later we will show you how to measure an item. But in a situation, you would measure what is the original layer system, and then you can at any time build that layer system into the wall settings. Then you select the wall, you edit the properties of this wall, and you go to the compound settings, the compound layers of this wall, and you can just keep adding all the necessary layers into this wall. In this case, it's 4 separate layers, and we know the values in millimeters, but now we are working in English feet and inches. So you will see that ARCHLine.XP itself is actually automatically coming with a built-in unit converter. I will show you the setting for the units later on. But first, what I will do, I will just quickly set which will be the core layer. In this case, it will be the one at the bottom. This will be the core layer from built of brick. There will be 2 insulation layers. So it's an insulation. I'm just looking for a material inside the ARCHLine.XP's libraries, which you can freely extend and bring in any sort of texture and do whatever you want with that library. Also, you can change the existing ones. And then now let's focus on the thicknesses. So now I know the thickness is in millimeters, but as you can see, when I type the original value in millimeters and I'm working in this sort of setting, the software is converting it into feet and inches. I will show you how you can refine this setting, because for this design we actually need that refinement. I will use the following value is this There is another one which is 80 millimeters. Sorry, it is 80 millimeters. I should not forget to type.
Yes,
millimeters.
because otherwise it's going to be a default.
Otherwise it will be
feet.
something else. Yeah,
I think it's coming together nicely. So.
Yeah, as you can see at the right bottom corner, it is having a nice little preview there, telling us whether it's fine or something. And it's millimeters. Yeah.
I think the last thing missing is the hatch pattern, because now all the 4 layers have the same pattern.
Yes.
But how do we turn that into something else?
Yes, the hatch pattern will be something that I like to use for thermal insulation. I will just use this pattern. You can choose whatever you want, and even the software is coming with built-in styles. We will show you that, so you don't even have to always continuously be starting from scratch. You can use multi-layered presets as well. I'm just showing how to create something like that, and I think I'm happy with this. Everything is cool. I just forgot to set up that this is actually the core layer. Okay, so yeah, everything is fine. I just hit OK, and here at the bottom of the screen you can see a layer, a style list, which is wherever you go in ARCHLine you will find styles for the roofs, for the slabs, for the railings, for the staircases and so on. These are there for you to save all those settings that you have just created. So if I would like to use this in the future, I just click here and I just say, okay, this is a 4-layered wall system, for example. System, yeah. So, and I can create a folder, subfolder, but I will just go with this, and I would like to use it in all my projects, so I just keep this option, and I say okay. So from this point on, this wall actually is a multi-layered wall, and I can either change the style of all these walls, or I can just click here. I will just do this in the 3D because I can easily select all the rest of these walls, and I just use this very popular option. It's got the copy properties. You can copy all sort of properties just as you would do it with a paragraph in Word, for example. You copy all these properties all around to the rest of the walls, and then you can just have this multi-layered setting. So whether you start with a conceptual drawing or you go with the detailed already, there is always there and back. You can just switch from one sort of representation to the other representation. You can manually change it at any time to have the desired effect.
And what about framed wall construction? So how do we add that? Because obviously this is not that example is not covering that. But can you show us something where we see how ARCHLine is doing framed walls? Yeah,
for that we have a complete project here, because the project that we are working on now is not a framed wall system, but this one here is made of using the same tools with all the same design systems, but with one difference. And that difference is here for the settings of this wall. If I go into the settings of this wall system and I see all the same settings, even the several layers are similarly set up, but there is another setting for the wall framing. So if you go there, you will be able to set up the floor plate, top plate, and whichever you select, the software tells you where that is and how you can set up the settings. You can add multiple framings to the same system, and those are also things that you can store into a style. We call that style, and then you can just use it over and over, or you can pass it to a colleague if you work together. This is something that you can export and import into ARCHLine versions. So
returning back to the original drawing that we have started working on, there's one thing what we forgot to mention, and that is the with the DWG import, we haven't talked about the layers.
Yeah,
an important topic, because if you already know some CAD systems, then you are familiar with layers. ARCHLine.XP does support the layer system. So for instance, if you want to turn off this drawing that we have imported, because for your rest of your work you don't need it, then you can do that just fine.
Yes, whenever you import a DWG file, the software automatically creates filters and variations out of that content that you had. So you can manually switch between there and back between the original DWG drawing and the newly created content using these layer filters here. If I go with the use layers, or only the layers that came with the DWG file, that was the name of the DWG file, so it's easy to find. Yes. I can easily turn them on or off, or change their printability, for example. So perhaps I would like to see them, edit them, but I don't want to print them, and in that case I can set that up. So it's pretty much similar to whatever else you used before with all the layer systems. This is quite the same thing.
Before we go one story up, because that's what we are aiming at, to create a multi-level building, let's talk about how do we add a staircase.
Yes, and before we do that, there's one another thing that I wanted to mention, because we talked about the slab, we talked about the wall itself, but we didn't talk about their connection. And for that, I have another project representing how that works. So now, if I would have created this very conceptual drawing with only one layer, I would have something like this. This is a simplified extract of a building with only a simple single layer wall and a single layer slab. But if you use multi-layered systems like multi-layered walls and multi-layered slab systems, then the software will automatically create this sort of connection. And this comes from the default settings of the software, which you can at any time change to whatever you want. But the basic setting is that core layers meet each other and they join at the proper place, and all the rest of the layers are just on top of that and connecting and colliding with the proper solutions. This sort of setting is actually, in case of a wall, which we already discussed, is in the settings of the wall. Whenever you set up the height of the base of set, for example, or the height of the layer itself, then you can go to the settings, and this is where you can set up where it belongs to and what's the constraint of this wall or the wall layer itself. And the same goes with all the other structures as well.
So there's a logical correlation between the elements.
That's right. Yeah.
Let's return back to the drawing. First, let's have a staircase, because now we want to go one floor up.
Yeah, about the staircases, there is a pretty large built-in library of the staircases that you can just go there, select, and just customize it. You can customize the ergonomics and whatever look and feel you would like to change for the staircase itself. And it's a very good thing. Today we won't use it because we don't have a 2D representation, but you can actually use an existing 2D representation of a staircase to build it one by one, step by step, and turn that into a staircase. Now we will just go with the simple option when we manually create the staircase, starting from here, going around and stopping here. And I also need to change the orientation of this staircase. I can select this one for going on the right hand side of the staircase. I can use values if I know the length, but I just click here now, and then now I have a default staircase with the bottom part and the steps at the top, which I can go there and find the settings and customize the way I want.
How do I make the staircase reach the second floor? Because now it's not reaching there at all. So.
Well, the easiest setting is that either I set up the proper height, or I just simply tell the software to take the floor height, and then it auto aligns the staircase to match the difference between the two levels. By the way, while we are talking about that, here's the place where you can actually add new floors above or below and set up the height of that floor to actually manage a multi-level building.
Now let's load up the next version of this project, because there's still a few things to do on this level, but we don't really want to care much about that. So we are just going to load up the next stage, and we are going to build up a multi-level building with the tools that we have here. Just 1 second.
In the following stage, we actually already have all the walls, all the windows, or the doors made using the same exact method that we just show you, using the 2 points method and tracing the walls this way. Also, we have created a tiny surrounding. This is actually a slab. The software supports a terrain. It has its terrain system itself. You can import terrains, but now we just made it simple by using a simple flat ground around. So now what you see here is that we actually have that nice staircase, all the multi-layered walls created the way we have just did it before. And then now what we need is to make a copy of this to multiply it as many levels we want to have.
And
so
I
just select the content that I would like to make a copy of. I just go with this, for example. You can see it on the 2D and the 3D. It's parallelly highlighted, so it's very easy to trace. Track. And then I just go and use the copy objects to other floor, and I can select as many floors as I want. I just would like to copy this to the second floor, and I hit OK. And now I have this this fully copied to the second level, and now I customize it the way I want. So for example, I don't need this wall here at the top level, and for example, I just would like to customize this. I just click here, I just move this node and flexibly redesign it, keeping the same characteristic, keeping the same materials, but changing the shape. And also, while talking about the slab, now we need to have a breakthrough, a hole.
Yes, because you can't go from one story to the other. So
as you will see, it is supported all around with the tools, but now we will just focus on this tool, which is actually having an automated way to create this hole. You only need to go back to the first floor. With these two buttons, I can just switch between the first floor and the second floor. So I just select the stair at the first floor, and then the stair itself has the ability to cut the slabs above itself. And then now when it appears like that, you can see that now it is something that people could use, that people can walk on. And it is based on the standard stair settings, which again is something that you can customize in the settings. I wanted to show one thing about the settings that you can find here in the software, and you can fully customize anything. Like for example, the units and angles that I did before are here on this page with all the other settings like the graphics and so on. So this is where you can customize how the software works.
Just one question about the floors. How do you navigate between the floors?
Navigating between the floors when you are on the 2D floor plan is by using this here, going up or below, and the same thing you can use on the keyboard. That's the page up and the page down key. So it's very, very simple.
Well, interestingly, it's like the pages of a book. You can just turn the pages and go one story up or down.
That's right.
Or you can just open up the navigator and just jump to the floor in which you care about what you do. So we are just going to load up a next version when we are looking to get a roof done on the whole location.
Yeah, so this is how you can create a multi-story building. As most of the structure will repeat itself on the following floors. I think it's one of the fastest ways to do that. And then when you achieve something like this with all the rest of the building structure, the rest of the doors and the windows and slabs, then you get to the point when you need to create the roof itself.
And how do we do that?
Now, that is also something in the software that has many different options, covering all the several different roof shapes and interesting ways of creating those flat roofs, Dutch gable, jerkin head, and so on. But now we will go with the simple open gable. So what I will do, I will just go here, pick this corner point. But before I do that, I make sure that I'm working on the proper floor, because for this purpose, we have actually created a roof floor for the roof itself. So I will just, as you can see, there is a change here that we have actually created in this stage. We have created several different levels, and we have created one at the top of this system for the roof itself. So what I will do, I will just go here, navigate to the proper floor, which is the roof floor itself. And interestingly, we cannot see anything from the other floors at this point, but we can turn on the visibility of any floor that is having a use for us. And then when I click here, it is appearing in gray. Now with the default setting, we can change that. I just go to the roof, and I just, instead of using the roof by walls, I will use this open gable, picking up the proper point. In this case, this is the first point. This will be the length of the roof, and this the third point defines the width of that, which is about, it's about here on this drawing. And there's quite a few lines here, but this is the one. So now what we have is this. This is something that we can start using with the default settings. I will show you a few settings, but the first interesting thing that sometimes when you edit the model, the 3D is kind of becoming outdated. Now, this is a situation, you only need to do to update the 3D. You only need to click here to rebuild the 3D. because now there is a situation going on between the walls and the roofs that the software can consider when you update the changes.
Yes.
This is happening there because sometimes when the project is kind of large, if this would happen automatically, you wouldn't be able to work because you would have to wait for the software to calculate how those things are connecting just as it did now. So it's transactional. You can decide when you would like to do that.
Perfect. But I think there are some things on this roof we have to get done. Some recesses and holes.
That's right.
How do we get them?
Okay, so before I do that, a few things about the settings, just as I mentioned. The settings are about its position, how it looks like, its pitch and shape. This is where you can define the roof pitch. And also how it works, how it cuts things, mostly the walls, and of course the general properties. And you can also turn on all the if spellings and everything else that you want. This is also coming with built-in styles that you can go with. Okay, so now to create those for the terrace and everything else, you only need to go, just as in case of the slab and the staircase, you need to use the local menu, the context menu of this roof, and find the hole option. And then you can just create that hole and trace the contours. Now, this is one of the simplest ways to do that, is to kind of, just clicking into the corner points and finding where this hole will be. And then as we are looking at the same side, you will see that appearing. When I hit enter and I close that, it appears automatically. This is also a flexible contour. You can change it at any time. And the same thing you can do on the other side, where we actually have a building part coming out because we have those large nice walls, but they cannot be seen now because the roof actually just removed that because of this connection
these
thing.
Things got chopped up. So how do we amend it? I mean, we could be adding a hole as well, but I think this is more like a recess. This goes into the roof.
Yes. Adding a hole works, or adding a recess automatically absolutely works. And this is the whole same thing that you can apply for a slab contour, a wall contour. Sorry, I just made a mistake with that. So I just click on the edge, use the insert node, and I highlight this corner point, and you see those lines appearing, the green lines. Those are the auxiliary lines, and then you can use them for tracing these connections between the points and the contour. And then you can just click here and use offset to move it, extend it, or make in a recess. And when you're done and you hit enter, then it is created. And what I need to do again is to update the 3D. So now I just go here and click on 3D, and then the software updates that automatically. You only need to wait a little while until it calculates the result, but then it's perfect.
Speaking of the roof, there are some details we have to get done at this stage, and one of them is the roof windows. So how do we draw them? Because how are they actually different from the actual windows?
Well, there is a tiny difference, which is very important for this, that you need to place these into the roof plane. So for that, there is a dedicated option here in the window options, which is the roof window. In case of the roof window, you need to select the roof plane itself. Now it's this. I will select the contour of this roof plane, and then I can set up the default settings for this roof. So in this case, I will go with a wooden material. I just it's something like a wood material. Sorry, I just go to the main library. You can select where you would like to look for these materials. If you're searching in the project, it will be less. But if you look for the whole ecosystem, you will find more and more materials. I will just go with this one. And and here I will use the proper width and the proper height.
The width should be 30 inches.
Yeah, it's 30.
And the height should be 55.
Yeah, sorry.
I think
inches, and it's 55, right?
55, yes. The software converts it based on what is actually set up. So
setting,
we had this kind of measurements and dimensions, but it's going to be turned into something else if it's needed.
Yeah.
How do we position this window exactly on the brackets that we have?
Yes. First things first. The software automatically recognizes where it can be positioned, or you can just type a sill height if you know that. But if you want, this is a situation like that, you would like to freely position it wherever it falls to, because I don't know where the sill height is, then I can just use this free option, freely placing it here and, for example, here, and then it appears there
They
on the
appear nicely.
3D design as well.
Another element of the roof is actually the rain gutters. So how do we get them done?
Yeah, for the gutter, I will just use any of those contours here. And what I will do is I go to the building and roof, and using the gutter.
Also, it's
option.
automated again. You don't have to track the path. You just
No, well, you can if you want, but if you just click on the bottom line of this roof, then the software automatically recognizes that shape. It offers to select different cross sections, to select the material, adding a downspout, which in our case can be anywhere here on this line, or we can just type the distance from here.
Let's put it 2 feet from the left hand side.
Okay, so it's 2 feet, and then let's just go with that. And when I just hit OK, I mean just create that, and the software adds that here, but I can change it at any time. What is the length we
Depends on
usually-
which plane we are talking about, because if it's the shorter one, then
I mean, the length is always the same here in this case because it is at the
20
same
feet then.
position, so it's 20 feet, right?
yeah, I think that's inches.
Yeah,
20
sorry,
feet.
20 feet. Yeah, so it's this is the length, and then here, okay, and then it appears over there. So this is how you can place it. You can edit it. You can copy that all around. So you can just work with that the same way as you work with all the walls and doors and everything else.
So let's place a few railings. One over here on the balcony closer to us, and maybe then we can copy to the next balcony. So how do we draw them?
Yeah, I just switch floors, so I'm at the second floor now, and I will use the railing tool, which you can apply on a staircase. You can design freely any sort of railing. I will just go with this one, picking up the corner points and saying that okay, it's actually here, and I hit enter, and then now I have this appearing all around. I can change the height if I want.
Yeah, what happens if I want to just change it a tiny bit, but I want to do it visually?
Well, in that case, you can use this these 3 axes. It works with all the items in ARCHLine, and then you can just move it somewhere where you would like to position it, like for example into this situation, and then you can just do the same thing which we did with the terraces. You can just control copy, and then let's just pick up a point and then just paste it over here with its middle point into that location, and then now we have that. It's
Perfect.
nice.
So that concludes the modeling part, and now comes the documentation part, which shouldn't necessarily be boring. Let's see what we have there. So let's load up the final version of the modeling, and open up that version, and then we can see how do we get some nice dimensions and hopefully some plot layouts as well.
Yeah, okay. So what we load now is this final version with all the details that we mentioned before, walls, roof, railings, and so on. But we need the information like written text and room names and things like that.
Yes.
So in that case, we will use this option, which is, I just clear this
I think
left side
before you
up.
do anything, I think we have to set up the geolocation, because a lot of information will be derived from that. So
Yes, that's right. Also, the north direction is very important. If you click here, you can freely set up the north direction. When you look at the drawing, you can see, okay, now there's north, so you can just easily set it up also by typing the angle. And setting up the geolocation works in a very, very easy fashion. You just go to Google Maps. You can actually choose any other options from here, but now I will go to Google Maps. But I think you know the location of this building, so let's just use this search box.
Yes, just a second. I'm just going to type in the address.
Yep.
And yeah, that's the one. And I think there was a vacant lot over here.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to move this over here. I can go back to the satellite view, so I can make sure that this is the vacant lot we were talking about. So I think this is fine. We can fine tune this later on. Not needed any further. But one very important thing is why we set these things up. It's because this information is going to appear on the plot layouts, and also you can make a shadow analysis. So you turn on the shadows, and then the shadows will be done based on the north location and where you are on the globe.
So this is what happens when you turn on the shading, and when you go to find the sun position Also, when you go and you would like to, just as you mentioned, you would like to create a shadow simulation. In that case, you can set up the proper date and time, and all those information derived from the real geolocation are an important data set that is necessary to calculate this and the rendered images. Now, if you would mind to open the rendered images again to see how they look like from the final version. When we will have all the objects, we will talk about the objects a little while later, to show how how you can populate the building surrounding, like this here. So this is the reason why it looks like this is because of the background and because of the sun setting that we applied here, which is georeferenced perfectly.
What kind of rendering engine did you use for this?
This is the internal rendering engine of the software. It is coming from a French maker. It is a ray tracer. So when you create those images with all the reflections and all the nice material settings, that will look like this. And you can also populate the surrounding with a little bit more, like cars and people and things like that. So those are still images that you can produce right from within the software using the built-in rendering engine. So this is what we have now.
Yeah, and we are going to return to this topic in a short while, but first let's talk about the documentation. All these numbers and calculations, how do we get them out from the model?
And one another thing before we do that is that where you can obtain these things are, for example, the 3D warehouse, or you can go to the BIM libraries and download objects. The software is also coming with built-in object libraries. You can go with default cars and so on, but at any time you can go online and find real makers stuff that you can download and apply into your model. So okay, about the documentation. In the documentation, what we would like to add first is perhaps the dimensions. You can find many different settings for the dimensions. One of the most popular is this kind of automated way when you can select the style that you would like to apply here, what you would like to measure with. This is a list from here. From here, I can add into the execution list here the commands to execute. That means these are all the measurements that are placed around when I select the building and I hit enter and I place it somewhere. The software automatically creates it all around, or even for the doors and windows, and all the lengths are appearing there. And these are all dynamically linked. That means when you change the drawing, the dimension will also change.
Okay, so these are not just plain numbers; they are in connection with the model.
No, yeah, these are in connection with the data. And when you would like to measure anything, like for example only this room width here, then you can just pick 2 points and then set it up over there. Talking about rooms, you can use the building and room and area tool, which is again having a default setting when you can just go around and click into the rooms and then later rename them, but the software actually automatically recognizes the shapes, the contours of these rooms, and it calculates the real size of that roof and it prints it on screen. This is something that you can customize, and you can later of course print it into a PDF file, for example.
What happens if a room has a split roles? Maybe half of it is a kitchen, the other half is the diner part. So how do we, because I see that this tool is recognizing the room contours.
Yes,
but in this case, that's not going to help us, because you want to manually define the part of the room which is going to be one location and the other one is going to be another one. So how do we do that?
In a situation like that, or if it's a terrace, because a terrace is not fully surrounded with walls as well, you will go with the room by polygon. In that case, you just go around and trace that room and say, okay, this is the terrace contour, and I would like to place the text. Yeah, that will be the height. That's fine. And I just click here and I just rename it. This is not a room. This is a terrace. And yeah, that's fine. And the same way you can just go around and rename all the rooms to the way you want. And that is how it will be printed.
You think it's time to create some sections maybe?
Yeah, a section is something that you can find easily in the documentation. This is the section. Also, if you are into interior designer, you will probably go with wall elevations as well. So there are many different options here. We will focus on the architectural part now, and we will say, okay, now I will just go with the default settings. I don't mind whether these are set visible or not visible. I just go whatever the software throws at me, and I will just hide the objects. This is an architectural drawing, so I don't want to see the chairs and the furniture inside the section, so I just disable that, and this is how it goes. I will, I think, create a section around some place here of this building. Later I can change its path or its location.
How do we know from which direction we are? Oh yeah, so
Yeah,
you can-
yeah. This way, when you have designed this, you can also create a broken section with a broken line. So when you set up this view direction, that will be the way you look at this section, and then the software generates. This is a dynamic section. That means it reflects the changes while you're working on the project. And as you can see, the connections are there automatically. There's still a few refinements that I need to do, perhaps adding a few more layers to the slabs and so
Yes,
on. But
because
basically, this is how
because
it
of the
goes.
underfloor heating, this is this
Yes.
hasn't been done before. But if you zoom in on the connection, on the detail of
Yeah.
how the slab meets the wall, you see exactly what you were talking about
Yeah.
earlier about the connection of the layers, that beautifully visible over here. So the next topic is how do we get something similar elevations? So
Yeah.
I think they are made the same way, maybe.
Yep, pretty similar. At the right-hand side, we did not discuss that yet, but at the right-hand side there is a project navigator, which allows you to navigate between floors as well, but it allows you to also create a south elevation. For example, when you click on it and it's not existing yet, the software will automatically generate that. At any time, you can convert these into 2D drawings. You can send it over to your clients, published into a PDF, which we will cover soon. And then also you can communicate with your colleagues if they are working with another software and they need a DWG file. You can export this into a DWG file. But generally speaking, what we have here in it, these are all in one single file, in one single project. So you don't have to worry about where you store those files. If you save your project itself, then everything is inside one single file.
Now let's put all these drawings into a plot layout, because we are going to end up with a lot of drawings and we want to
Yep.
organize them somehow. So
Yep.
I'm sure you have realized that up until this point we have been working in one-to-one scale. So we created everything in the same scale as it actually exists. But how
Yep.
do we scale them up or down?
Okay, so what we have here is the building itself. We used it partially for documentation, but it is a building. It is not a paper that we can print. So for the paper, we need to prepare a layout, a plot layout, we call that. And then for the plot layout, you need to set up the paper size. I will go with ISO sizes, but as you can see, any sort of other size you can set up, and even custom sizes are supported. And you can go with several different settings for the portrait or landscape, and even you can also add your title box if you have any. I will just go with the default now. You can create your own title box. We have a tutorial about that. And I just go with this one and I say, okay, I would like to prepare this layout and I would like to fill this up with the, sorry, it appears on the other screen, with the information that appears here. For example, the designer is me. And for example, the company I'm working for is ARCHLine, and so on. So you can fill this up.
Yep.
And when you say OK, then the software fills that information into this title box easily.
So how do we get drawings onto this layout in a scaled down version?
Yeah, in that case, when it appears in front of you, you need to find the proper drawing. Now, in this case, this will be the second floor. So I just click and drag and release the mouse and I select the scaling. I will go with 1:100. And if that fits, I'm fine. It's okay. If it's not, then I can rescale it. At any time, if I click on it, I can change what I see. I can, kind of make a cropped version of this one, like only the half I would like to see. And also, I can go at any time into the settings and saying that, okay, what I see here is not correct, because I would like to change its scaling to from 1:100, for example, to 1:50. And then the software rescales that. I can just move it, realign it on the content, and so on. I can just find the best solution, perhaps placing a few rendered images here or a section here on the right-hand side, and so on. If it's a larger paper, I have even more options to do that. We actually did that before. Yeah. So we have a larger version. It is on a rather large page. We already created a PDF file, but first, before I show you the final result, I would like to show you how to plot this into a PDF file, how to prepare a PDF file. So when you see the content that you would like to print, you go to the print to PDF option, you name the file where you would like to place it, you set up the paper size and the orientation, and also you can set up the scale factor, which is in this case it will be 1 to 1.
Yeah, you don't have to scale it down any further because it's already scaled. So
Yeah, and in this case, I would like to print the entire drawing and the entire content what I have here. So this is what I will go with, and this is let's just center that. Yeah, sorry, I just made a mistake here. This is landscape, and let's just recenter it again. And this is the content that I would like to publish. When I click on print, this is, in this case, it is actually publishing a PDF file. The same dialog applies for printing literally to a printer and publishing PDF files in several formats. So this is the way we have created this final version, which is having quite a few more visual information, but those are only objects that we actually downloaded from 3D Warehouse, or we used from the built-in libraries of the software. We used these this room and shape.
I think some of them are actually blocks brought in from another CAD software. So.
Yes, you can also use that. We created a few sections. You can see the section lines clearly. We used those room and area tools, and these here are also objects, and this is what we call a block here. This is in the software we actually call these groups, 2D groups that you can use as stamps that you can place on a drawing.
So what happens if you want to create some kind of lists or schedules from this drawing?
Yeah, okay, so we have this final version that we have started with. This is where we would like to head to at the end of our design. And here we already have the full drawing with the full everything around all the different levels and everything here.
That's actually what we used for the plot layout, what you just saw. So what if I want to collect all the rooms into a nice table text?
Yeah, you have a few options. One of these options are the schedules that you can just go and either you can define your own schedules, or you can go with the factory default ones. I will just go with the default one now. And I would like to extract data of all my rooms, but without the floor information in this case. I will just I try to keep it as simple as possible. Now I don't want to confuse everyone, so I just go with the room name and for example the area. That's all. That's all I want to list. Well, a large list for this, like a room legend for this one level. And then when I hit OK, I just would like to extract this information of one floor. But if I want to, I can extract all the floors and say OK. Let's just place it here around, and this is what I would like to see. So now I have a nice summary at the right-hand side, kind of a legend of all of my rooms here in this on this drawing. And the same thing I can do with many other things. You can go and find all these sort of door, window schedules, slabs, and so on, even with the layers and so on.
I see an icon that you probably connect to Microsoft Excel.
Yes, that's right. Here you can find the quantity takeoff. This is also, you can also create RTF lists for Word, or you can create Excel lists, and you can go with any sort of, even you can extract the tiling information. The software is able to literally tile the surfaces and then calculate the amount of tiles and so on, terrains. And in case of the building calculation, you can also create a large Excel file with all the beams, columns, and architectural information extracted, like length, surface sizes, and so on.
Yes.
And make calculations with those.
We promised that we are going to take the show from the beginning, from the first lines all the way to visualization. Now, we did show you some rendered images, but that's not where we are stopping here. Instead, we are going to talk about another product that we have, which is ARCHLine.XP Live, and that is all about visualization.
Yeah, so have a look at that.
So what we are seeing on the screen right now is a finalized virtual walkthrough of the building that we just created, and that was apparently made with ARCHLine.XP Live. What is actually Live?
Live is a third software, the separately installed software for visualization, real-time visualization. So what you see on screen was kind of real-time recorded. You don't have you didn't have to wait for long rendering shots and so on. So we will load the model now into Live, which was the original BIM model in ARCHLine. And then this is what you get at the first shot is actually the building, the things that you have modeled in ARCHLine, the design software, all the walls, the building structure, roofs, and so on. And also the sun settings are coming from, as you can see, the sun is actually moving in Live.
That's right.
You can set up a different time, a different date, but the location is the one that you have set up.
Yeah, we did set up the geolocation. That's where this information is coming from, right?
Yes, that's right. So and also the materials, the different shots, the views, the 3D perspectives are coming from the previous software, and those are actually not only perspective views, those are also images that you can just send away to your clients right away. You didn't have to wait a second to create those images. Those are automatically created there at the tray of live, as you can see.
So there was no rendering time whatsoever.
No rendering time. And also, if you would like to fine-tune something, as you can see, all the materials are coming from ARCHLine, predefined material sets you can just select from, and then you can just change this material to wall surface, plastic surface, or anything else, and you can even change the brightness, and you can see the change appearing instantly all around in your model.
Yes.
So this is how you change the materials, modify the materials, you can even create materials, and you can work with the high fidelity materials of the software itself, because the live software is shipped with a built-in library of materials and also objects. We will also work with those. Now what I'm doing is I'm actually pulling in those materials, applying them to the surfaces, and they are changed wherever else they are in this model. So I actually kind of test what is the best for this solution. And once I find that, I can just go into another library, finding perhaps some environment material like asphalt, grass surface, and so on. And then I can just click and drag.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
Let's just try a darker tone. If I don't like that, I can just go back to the previous version. You can redo things just as you would do in any other software. And I will also change this pavement. As you can see, there are other libraries for internal flooring as well. You can even see the scratches on the flooring on those materials. Also the metal surfaces you can apply onto different areas of your design. And there is one library which is called the stone flooring, and that contains a few stone surfaces for flooring, or even you can apply them to wall surfaces. And let's just apply this here, because this actually highlights how detailed these materials are. It's really popping up. It really looks like it's 3D. And this is a very good quality material, and all of those are part of the built-in library.
So you don't have to manually download this.
No.
It comes with the factory.
Yeah, though you can extend the libraries with your own materials, of course, but these are all built in, and you can just start working with those. And also the same applies for 3D assets, objects, and decorative items, external or internal items like this car here. You can see that you can move it, you can rotate it. It's a very high detailed object with all the beautiful reflections around on the surfaces. Even there's the steering wheel inside, so it's a very, very detailed one. But you can work very fast in this software, because this is tailored for working with a large amount of surfaces and high detailed materials, which you would otherwise kind of try to avoid when you design the building in the design software, when you make the documentation, because those are a lot of polygons.
Yes, it would take a lot of time to render these things, but apparently here there's no rendering time.
But here it's not a problem. You can just click and drag and bring in detailed plans and decorative items. Even you can kind of build a hedge here. You can just rotate it the way you want. You can move it around. You can scale it even if you want. And as you can see, it's slightly blown by the wind.
Oh yes, there's movement everywhere.
Yes. So those are actually living with the scene, and you can just control copy and control paste them anywhere. So you can actually have a large amount of those all around. I also try to find something which is a fireplace itself, so you can just use that search field if you know that you would like to find something that's part of the library. And if you just search for fire, that is coming up something that we call effects in the software.
It's like
those
dynamic.
Yes, dynamic content, which this fire is really burning the wood over there, as you can see. So it is really having a nice living effect here, and you can apply if this would be an interior, you can use it for internal fireplaces, or even candle lights you can apply.
What else can you add?
There you can see there are larger trees and bushes and other decorative plants that you can use on the street or inside the garden. Either should it be a sakura tree or an acacia or something like that. You can just pop it in, and then you can just replace it. You can even resize it, and as you can see, these are all living, blown by the wind as well. And well, this way you can actually add a little bit more. And as you see on the right hand side in the library, there are tiny human figures next to those
Is that for
thumbnails.
the scale, so you understand how big things are?
That's for the scale.
Now, question: how do you place multiple trees at once? Because it might be a little bit cumbersome to paint the surfaces with vegetation. So
Yes.
what can you do?
Yes, well, you can actually select multiple trees and control, copy, and paste them. But there is an even better tool which is called the foliage tool. That's what I'm using now. And the foliage tool has some brushes and palettes that you can actually customize on your own. I have two default trees on the palette. So when I click and drag the brush, I can actually paint the surface with trees, which is a beautiful way of populating the surrounding with large amount of detailed foliage, and that brings a lot of detail into the design. This is actually what we are doing now. We are trying to fill it up with life and details, because that makes it living. And as you can see, you can just do it in seconds. It really does not take a long time.
Makes things much more interesting. So what is the output format? What are we working towards?
Well, first things first, we are having images, just as you saw before. We will create a video file as well. Also, you can import content into the library. This is what you can see on the right-hand side, which you can import FBX or OBJ files. You can directly import into the software. Or when you work together with the design software, then you can just directly import objects from the design software as well. It's not a necessary thing to do, but you can also do that, because Live is also a standalone software, so you don't need to have the design software to be able to work with that. There are also surroundings that we have downloaded and imported, and this is how we got to this stage, where you have all the motorbikes, all the surrounding nicely painted, and all the street lights as well. So now we have updated the images themselves. Those are the latest snapshots that we have created in a second. And these are the images that we are about to send to the client. So this is really instant. And now also we have discussed the sunlight, but we didn't talk about the artificial lights, like a street light or a light inside the building, or a lamp. That is something that you can manage here. As you can see, once you switch to the light mode, you will see those nice tiny light bulbs. So you can turn them on. You can manage them. You can turn them on or off, and even you can change their intensity. You can change their color. If you would like to, you can select a color from a color palette from like NCS or Arial or something like that, or you can just even mix your own color. And then also you can change how it interacts with the world. Like this is a helper light or a real light. So this is really something that you can change.
So once you have set up the lights, I think the last thing to do is to get to the exports. We already created a few images, but how do you capture the movement of this model?
Yes, well, let's have an animation. Now for this animation, you can go to the animation palette. By the way, there is also an output for Panoramic 360. So now we have two animations coming from the design software, which we can just play and see whether we like the result or not. If we like it, we can record it, save it into an AVI file, which then we can later upload to YouTube or Facebook. Or we can edit this content, and even better, we can also create our own additional animations. So perhaps, like for example, I would like to turn around and go to those rocks over there, and from that rocks, I would like to approach this building in a nice closing shot. So what I do, I move there. There's a special tool for that, to click and move over there, and then I turn around. So this will be the first frame. And then I click here and I create a new animation. Now, when I create a new animation, I have the first frame. All I need to do is to find the final shot where I would like to get to. So this should be somewhere around here. And then now I can add this frame as an additional frame to the existing one, and I can also change the length of it. I think 6 seconds would be okay. So let's just go back to the beginning. Let's have a preview. If I like it, I think this is quite good. I think
this would do.
So it's very easy, extremely easy to create an animation, and then I can just save it. If I like it, I can click on this little icon to save it as an AVI. And we just did this before with the other one, with the first shot. So let's just play what result looks like.
Looks very good. Looks like our work is done. So in a very short time, we managed to create the building that you see over there, and we dressed it up in ARCHLine.XP Live. I understand that as a closing remark, we have a few user-made models that we can show you. We have mentioned that Live is a new product, but we already have great and beautiful projects being realized with it. Let's see the first example. I think this is a residential area, and that was made with ARCHLine.XP Live as well.
And this is not even just one single building with its surrounding, but you will see this is a long street of separate, detailed and nice buildings.
Vegetation does wonders with the end result. I can say that.
That's right. And as you can see, all the fences are created. And this is only not for just architecture, but also for interior design, which you will see later.
Perfect. So let's just look at the videos until the questions from the viewers come in. And at the end, we are going to answer them as well. Let's just admire these things.